Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something fundamental to how we make sense of the world: reading. We're going to unpack the cognitive skills that underpin this ability, drawing on a really interesting 1994 review, looking at response time data to understand how we read.
Exactly. When you think about it, reading is this amazing feat our brains perform. In this review, it helps us get under the hood, see what's actually going on when we move from just seeing letters to understanding complex ideas.
Right.
Our goal today is to take this research and really boil it down for you so you can understand how these different reading skills develop over time. We're hoping for some of those, aha moments that clarify the basic building blocks of reading.
And what's fascinating is that this wasn't just like a theory they pulled out of thin air. They looked at a huge number of studies where researchers actually measured how long it took people different ages, different reading abilities to do specific things related to reading. Everything from recognizing a single letter to understanding a whole paragraph. It's all about, hard data, measuring the speed of these mental processes.
Right. And from all that data, the review pinpoints 6 key cognitive components that are essential for reading. We're going to explore each of these. First, single letter recognition, then identifying multi-letter units, moving on to recognizing words and pseudo words, those made-up words, then semantic access, how we actually get to the meaning, followed by understanding phrases and sentences, and finally, text comprehension, the big picture.
Okay, so it's like a step-by-step process, isn't it? From the very simple to the incredibly complex. And the review highlights that these skills tend to build on each other.
Exactly.
You got to have a good handle on recognizing letters before you can really take off with reading whole sentences. So where do we begin this exploration of our reading brains?
We should start with the absolute basics. Single letter processing. The review looks at several studies that measure just how quickly people can recognize individual letters. A common task was letter matching.
Okay, matching.
Yeah. For example, one study looked at auditory visual matching, hearing a letter sound, then picking out the written letter. What's striking is that in kindergarten, this took quite a while, actually over 2 seconds on average.
2 seconds? Wow.
Yeah. But then in first grade, there's this massive leap. Response times drop way down to around 400 milliseconds.
Huge drop.
It is. And this improvement continues, but more gradually, until about 6th grade. It really highlights how much our ability to link sounds and letters accelerates with that initial reading instruction.
2 whole seconds just to match a sound to a letter in kindergarten. That really puts the early stages of learning to read in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
And visual matching, just seeing 2 letters and deciding if they're the same, that took even longer for those young kids. Over 3 seconds.
Over 3 seconds.
Again, first grade seems to be the game changer, with times dropping to 800 milliseconds initially and then 600 later in the year.
Right.
Eventually leveling off around 6th grade, much like the auditory visual task. It really underscores the impact of that first year of focused literacy education on this foundational skill.
And it gets even more interesting when you look at how different readers perform. One study compared good and poor readers on this visual matching task.
Okay.
They found consistent differences, with poor readers taking significantly longer, especially in those early years, like a gap of 300 to 400 milliseconds in first and second grade.
That's substantial.
It's a substantial difference in how quickly their brains are processing that basic visual information. Interestingly, though, by 6th grade, they found something surprising. The poor readers were actually a bit faster.
Really? Faster?
Yeah, faster, which suggests that while they might start slower, maybe they develop different strategies or, compensatory mechanisms as they get older.
That is a surprising turn. It makes you wonder if they're relying on a different kind of processing by that point, maybe.
Could be. But the overall trend, as other research confirmed, is definitely towards increasing speed as kids develop. They saw response times decrease from 2nd to 4th grade. And then it seemed to plateau for the 4th graders when they were tested again a year later. It's like they reached a certain point of efficiency for this basic task.
Got it.
And when you look at highly skilled readers, like college students, the speed is really remarkable. One study found they could match letters within just 50 milliseconds.
50 milliseconds? That's incredibly fast.
It is. However, even among these skilled readers, there were differences, with the faster readers being quicker still. It suggests that the speed at which we can access letter information from our long-term memory continues to refine even at that advanced level.
So it's not just about recognizing the shape,
No.
It's about that instantaneous retrieval of the letter's identity.
Precisely. It's not just seeing the shape. It's about pulling up that stored knowledge. Oh, that's a B.
Okay, so it's not just seeing the letter on the page, but how quickly our brains can connect that visual info to our stored knowledge of what that letter is.
Yeah.
Now, what about actually saying the letters out loud? That seems like another fundamental part of early reading.
Absolutely. And studies on naming and oral reading of single letters also show this clear developmental trend. One study found that the time it took to name letters decreased significantly from first to third grade, about 200 milliseconds,
Okay.
with smaller improvements from third to fifth grade. Interestingly, they didn't find a significant difference in naming speed between good and poor readers in those grades.
That's interesting. Why might that be?
Well, it might suggest that at the single letter naming level, the basic motor act of just saying the letter becomes relatively efficient for most students by that point, regardless of overall reading skill.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe at the single letter level, it's more about basic recognition and articulation for both groups.
Mhm.
But other research did show consistent, although small, decreases in oral reading time for single letters from second to sixth grade,
Right, a gradual refinement.
indicating that gradual refinement over those years. And again, the research supports the idea that the biggest jump in speed happens during that crucial first grade year.
Yeah,
It keeps coming back to first grade.
it really does. And one study uncovered a fascinating detail about letter case, uppercase versus lowercase.
Yeah.
Kindergartners were actually about half a second faster at reading uppercase letters compared to lowercase.
Really? Why would that be?
Well, the thought is maybe those early readers find the more uniform, perhaps less visually complex shapes of uppercase letters easier to process initially. That difference shrinks significantly to just 100 milliseconds by the second half of first grade and essentially disappears by 10th grade.
That makes perfect sense. Those uppercase letters are often the first ones kids learn to write too, aren't they? So there's likely a stronger initial visual familiarity.
Exactly.
So the key takeaway from this look at single letter processing seems to be, well, first grade is this period of incredibly rapid development, largely driven by that initial reading instruction. And generally, we reach a kind of plateau in speed around fifth or sixth grade, although highly skilled readers can continue to see subtle improvements as their access becomes even more automatic.
Spot on.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the individual letters. What's the next step in becoming a fluent reader? Where do we go from here?
Well, building on that foundation, we next look at the processing of multi-letter units, specifically non-word units like syllables.
Okay, syllables. Not real words, but chunks.
Right, common letter combinations. Research examined visual matching of these syllables and found that processing speed continued to improve through the seventh grade.
Seventh grade, so longer than single letters.
Yeah, longer than we saw with single letters. But the most significant drops happened in the second grade. After fifth grade, the response times tended to level off around 1,500 milliseconds.
So another acceleration around second grade.
Exactly. It suggests our ability to process these chunks of letters visually continues to develop, with another notable burst in second grade indicating we're getting better at handling larger visual units.
So even though they're not meaningful words, our brains are still getting more efficient at processing these common letter patterns as we get older, with another burst around second grade.
And what about when you hear a syllable and then see one, the auditory visual link again?
Good question. The research on auditory visual matching of syllables found similar trends. Again, the biggest improvements are around 450 milliseconds occurring between the first and second half of second grade.
Second grade again. It really emphasizes that as another key period for integrating auditory and visual information for these multi-letter chunks.
Precisely. And oral reading of syllables followed the same pattern in the research, with a substantial 1-second drop in response time by the second half of second grade.
A whole second.
Yeah. It really seems like second grade is a crucial developmental phase for efficiently processing these larger visual and auditory units that make up parts of words.
It's like our brains are learning to see and hear letters in groups more efficiently, which probably lays the groundwork for recognizing whole words more easily later on.
Absolutely. And even for older students who struggle, like those problem high school readers in one study, they saw a 100 millisecond decrease in search time after training specifically on these common orthographic units.
Right. It shows that even later in development, focused practice on these multi-letter chunks can still have a positive impact on processing speed. It's not too late.
That's encouraging.
Hmm.
So the key takeaway here is that just like with single letters, our speed at processing these multi-letter units improves significantly in the early grades, particularly around second grade, which seems to be a real milestone in how we handle visual information during reading.
Spot on. Now we move on to word-level processes, where we're dealing with whole words. The research here explores a range of tasks: matching, searching, naming, oral reading.
The whole shebang for words.
Pretty much. One study on auditory visual word matching showed a significant decrease in reaction time in second grade, around 800 milliseconds, with less change after that until grade 7.
800 milliseconds, another big second grade jump.
Yes. It really appears that those initial stages of learning to read and recognize whole words lead to a substantial acceleration in processing speed right around this time.
And visual word matching, just seeing two written words and deciding if they're the same.
Yeah.
Other research found that response times decreased from second to sixth grade, with a more noticeable drop between second and fourth grade.
Right.
Interestingly, when they asked students to match words based on whether they had the same spoken name, the response times were consistently longer, especially for younger students. Why is that?
That's a really insightful point from the research. It highlights the developing link between the visual form of a word, how it looks, and its phonological representation, how it sounds in our minds. Younger readers are still strengthening those auditory pathways, so accessing the name of a word internally takes more cognitive effort and, well, therefore, more time.
Got it. That visual sound connection is still developing. And the comparison between good and poor readers continued at the word level too, right?
Yes. Research comparing them on visual word matching found consistently larger differences across all grades, although the gap did narrow somewhat by sixth grade.
No.
Even when they were matching different words, good readers were faster, with the biggest differences seen in those early elementary grades. But by sixth grade, that difference became quite small.
So maybe the poor readers are kind of catching up in that basic visual discrimination of whole words over time.
It seems that way for basic visual matching, but when the task involved matching by word name again, poor readers were consistently slower right up until sixth grade.
Ah, so the sound access is still the differentiator.
Exactly. And even when they studied college students, the faster readers were quicker at this name-based matching. It really reinforces the idea that having efficient access to the sound of a word is crucial for skilled reading.
Makes sense. And what about finding words in context, like in a sentence?
Yeah, one study looked at searching for a specific word within a sentence. It showed that the time it takes to find that word decreases from second to fourth grade, and even more so in college students. This indicates that with increased reading experience and fluency, we become much more efficient at identifying words within a meaningful context.
Okay. Now let's talk about the speed at which we can actually say words out loud, naming them.
Right. Research found that poorer first-grade readers were slower at naming words. Later work showed good readers were faster at naming words across third and fifth grades. And interestingly, when the words were presented within a sentence context, it actually helped reduce the difference in naming speed between the good and poor readers.
So context helps everyone, but maybe especially the poorer readers.
It seems that way, yeah. Like the surrounding words provided some extra cues that benefited everyone, perhaps leveling the playing field a bit.
What about those pseudo words, the fake words? They must be harder.
Oh, definitely. And what's particularly revealing is the data on naming pseudo-words. By fifth grade, good readers were becoming increasingly faster at naming these pseudo-words compared to poor readers.
Bigger gap for fake words.
Yes. And the biggest differences between the two groups were actually in tasks involving rhyme production, especially in third grade. This strongly suggests that good readers are developing a more robust and flexible understanding of letter-sound relationships, which is essential for decoding novel words.
That makes perfect sense. Pseudo words really put that decoding ability to the test, right? You have to rely on your knowledge of letter sounds.
Exactly. You can't just recognize it as a whole unit you've seen before.
And other research looking at naming words with different cues, pictures, rhymes, meaning also found that generating a rhyme for a word was the slowest task across grades 4, 6, and 8.
Yeah, that deeper phonological processing seems to take a bit more time than just naming or identifying meaning.
Okay, so looking at oral reading of single words, we see improvements again, especially by mid-second grade.
Yes, a significant drop then, with continued decreases through sixth grade. And research highlighted again that poorer readers were slower at oral reading in fourth and fifth grade.
And reading words in context is faster than in isolation.
Generally, yes. Again, suggesting that surrounding text can facilitate word recognition.
Now, what about vocalization latency? That's the time just to start saying the word.
Right. The gap between seeing the word and initiating speech. Research found substantial differences between good and poor readers in third and fifth grade, with poor readers being significantly slower to start saying the word.
And that difference gets bigger for longer words.
It does. Later research showed larger differences for two-syllable words, implying that the length and complexity presents a greater challenge for struggling readers. And another study confirmed that these differences based on reading ability were often more significant than the differences simply based on grade level.
Wow. So ability trumps age sometimes in this measure.
In this specific measure, yes. And the data on vocalization latency for pseudowords is particularly informative. Consistently, the response times are longer for pseudowords than for real words.
Makes sense.
And this difference is much more pronounced for poor readers. This really emphasizes the specific difficulty that poorer readers have with that crucial print-to-sound correspondence needed to pronounce unfamiliar words.
Right, that decoding bottleneck.
Exactly. Interestingly, data showed the biggest improvement in pseudoword vocalization speed occurred between third and fourth grade, which is a bit later than the biggest gains for real words.
So mastering those sound letter links for novel words takes a bit more time, maybe builds upon experience with real words first.
That seems plausible, yes.
So the overall picture at the word level seems to be, speed takes off in early grades, second and third especially. But poorer readers show smaller gains, and pseudowords are a particular hurdle for them, really underscoring the importance of those letter-sound connections.
You've got it. And by around fifth grade, further dramatic improvements in processing speed at the word level tend to be less common for most.
Okay, so from words to meaning, semantic access, how quickly do we get the meaning?
Exactly. Now we shift focus to semantic access. How quickly can we retrieve and understand the meaning? A common way researchers study this is through category judgment tasks.
Like, is a robin an animal?
Precisely. Decide if a word belongs to a specific category. Research following students through a reading program showed consistent decreases in response time for these judgments over time. Their ability to access meanings became more efficient as their reading improved.
So reading practice helps meaning access speed.
It does. And other research also found faster response times in higher grades and improvement over a year, particularly for younger students. Both age and continued practice contribute to quicker semantic access.
So as we become better readers, we not only recognize words faster, but we also get quicker at grabbing their meaning and understanding how they fit with other concepts.
Correct. And related research consistently found that students in lower grades generally had longer response times for these category judgments, and that good readers consistently outperformed average and poor readers across the board.
Even in college.
Yes, interestingly, even at the college level, poor college readers sometimes showed similar semantic access speeds to fifth graders.
Wow. So that speed of accessing meaning can be a persistent challenge, even with more education.
It really underscores that simply getting older doesn't automatically translate to faster semantic processing. Underlying reading ability plays a crucial role. Other work looked at category judgments about pictures, finding similar patterns related to reading ability, though maybe slightly smaller differences than with words.
And combining pictures and words, same pattern.
Same pattern, yeah. The ability level differences emerged again, often with the biggest gap between average and poor readers. And another study found a substantial difference in the speed of these judgments between second and fifth graders.
And even just matching word meanings showed differences among college readers.
Yes, research asking college students to judge if two words had similar meanings found that the faster overall readers were consistently quicker at making these semantic similarity judgments.
Okay, so key takeaway for semantic access.
STAT here is a strong indicator of overall reading skill, improving with grade level and experience. Skilled readers just connect to meaning faster.
That sums it up well. Now we're moving beyond individual words to understanding how we handle groups of words, phrases, and sentences.
Right, putting it together.
Research here used tasks like cued recall, trying to remember a sentence with a cue and close tasks, filling in missing words.
Okay.
One study on sentence recall found good sixth graders fastest, while poor fourth graders took significantly longer. It highlights that developmental progression. And work on closed tasks showed a really dramatic decrease in completion time from second to third grade.
There's that second to third grade jump again, a big leap in understanding sentence context.
It really keeps appearing as pivotal, doesn't it? Then there are tasks judging sentence sense grammatical or meaningful. Like, does this sentence sound right? Or does it make sense?
Exactly. Research showed speed in judging syntactic, grammatical appropriateness increased from second to fourth grade, with the biggest gains often in third grade after a year. Their implicit grasp of language structure seems to solidify then.
And judging semantic appropriateness, the meaning. Same pattern.
Same pattern. Speed increased from second to fourth grade, with larger improvements in younger grades over a year. Their ability to make sense of language and spot anomalies develops rapidly then.
And intervention can help even older struggling readers with this.
Yes, research found that poor high school readers could make significant gains in semantic judgment speed after targeted intervention, even surpassing younger, unimproved students. It shows these higher-level skills can be improved with practice, even later on.
That's good news. And oral reading of phrases also gets faster on second grade.
It does, indicating a growing ability to process words in meaningful groups, while sentence reading, as other studies show, can be influenced by things like the sentence's importance or position in a passage.
More complex factors at play.
Right, suggesting more complex processing for key information, even for skilled college readers.
And matching or scanning sentences. What did that show?
Well, one study found college students actually took longer to process ungrammatical sentences compared to grammatical ones.
Interesting. Our grammar knowledge trips us up on bad sentences.
It seems our ingrained understanding affects even basic processing speed. And another study showed poorer fifth graders were slower at scanning sentences for target words, indicating less efficient processing of the sentence structure overall.
Okay, so main takeaway for phrases and sentences. It's complex, improves with experience, but second grade, again, seems to be a time of significant growth in handling these multi-word units and understanding connected language.
You got it. Finally, we arrive at text-level processing, understanding larger chunks, paragraphs, passages.
The big picture. How do we measure that speed?
One common measure is words per minute, WPM, reflecting reading fluency. Research showed first and second graders' WPM increased significantly as they progressed through reading programs, especially with familiar text.
Practice and familiarity boost fluency. Makes sense.
And other work found good first graders were consistently faster reading both coherent and random paragraphs compared to less skilled peers, and they showed greater speed gains on the coherent text over time.
But text structure helps fluency.
Definitely. It emphasizes the importance of text organization in facilitating reading speed. Research also highlighted that poorer readers were slower at passage reading in grades 4 and 6. Interestingly, the speed difference between good and poor readers was actually larger in fourth grade than in sixth.
Why would that be?
Perhaps less skilled readers struggle more significantly with longer texts when they first encounter them earlier in schooling, and maybe some catch-up happens later, or the texts get relatively easier. And even at the college level, studies found students took longer to read more complex, densely packed text.
So text difficulty always matters.
It remains a significant factor affecting reading speed and comprehension, even for highly skilled readers.
So the key takeaway for text processing. Speed increases with schooling, influenced by familiarity, difficulty, coherence, and these factors remain relevant even for advanced readers.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've journeyed through all set of components, from single letters all the way up to whole texts. Looking at all this response time research, what's the overarching picture that emerges about how reading develops?
Well, the review strongly suggests that these fundamental reading skills tend to develop in a generally bottom-up fashion. We see those foundational abilities quickly recognizing letters, letter combinations becoming more efficient in the early elementary grades.
Right, the base gets faster first.
Exactly. This increased efficiency at these lower levels then seems to pave the way for improvements in higher-level comprehension processes. And as we've seen repeatedly, first and second grades appear to be particularly critical periods for rapid development across many of these essential reading components.
Like building a house-strong foundation first.
Precisely. You need that solid, automatic foundation of fast, accurate letter and word recognition before your brain can really dedicate more resources to understanding the meaning and structure of more complex language.
And this understanding, it has practical uses, right, for education.
Oh, definitely. Really practical implications. Analyzing these developmental timelines and the response time data can be incredibly valuable for diagnosing reading difficulties.
How so?
Well, by examining how quickly someone performs on these various component tasks, we can identify specific areas where their processing speed might be lagging behind what's typical for their age and reading level.
So like if a fifth grader is taking as long to name single letters as a typical first grader.
Exactly. That could be a clear indicator of a specific underlying difficulty that needs targeted instruction. By comparing an individual's performance to establish normative data, educators and specialists can pinpoint those specific underdeveloped skills.
And then target interventions.
Precisely. This knowledge can inform the development of targeted educational interventions designed to strengthen those weaker foundational components, hopefully leading to more effective improvements in overall reading ability. It's about understanding the building blocks so we can fix weaknesses in the foundation.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the intricate mechanics of reading. It's quite remarkable, the depth of research here. So as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you, our listener.
Yeah.
Considering how significantly our reading processing speed evolves in those early years,
Mm.
what does this tell us about the profound importance of early literacy instruction? And, the potential for identifying and addressing reading challenges as early as possible? Could a more nuanced understanding of these underlying cognitive components lead to even more effective, more personalized approaches to reading education, helping more people become fluent, confident readers?
That's a really crucial question to consider, isn't it? Think about your own journey learning to read, or maybe kids you know. Do these findings about developmental progression and processing speed resonate with what you've seen?
Yeah.
How might this deeper understanding inform how we nurture literacy in the future? It's definitely some food for thought.